Hi, I'm Batsheva Frankel from Overthrowing Education, a part of the Education Podcast Network, just like the show you're listening to now. Shows on the network are individually owned, and opinions expressed may not reflect others. Find other interesting education podcasts at edupodcastnetwork.com.
Support for this episode of the House of EdTech comes from EverFi. EverFi has courses to help students with many important topics that schools and teachers need to teach. Coming up on episode 190 of the House of EdTech podcast, I have got a great collaboration tool that I'm going to share. I've got a fantastic House of EdTech VIP, and my guest today is Leena Saleh, the EdTech Guru, and we are dropping EdTech truth bombs. Strike up the band. Welcome to the House of EdTech. My name is Chris Nesi. The House of EdTech launched in 2014, giving me the opportunity to speak with teachers, leaders, and creators so you can more effectively integrate technology, strengthen your pedagogy, and have more confidence in your classroom and school so you can make an impact. Get involved with the podcast by visiting my website, chrisnesi.com. Using technology isn't difficult, and this is where it begins. This is the House of EdTech. And I can't wait to dig into today's content because I have a fantastic guest, as I just mentioned. I'm very excited to be sharing a conversation I had with Leena Saleh, the EdTech Guru. But first, a couple of announcements here, and really it is just one major announcement, and that is the end of the year is almost here, which means it's almost time for the House of EdTech Smackdown. This is the 2021 edition of the Smackdown, the 8th annual House of EdTech Smackdown. I can't believe it. I'm going to be completing my 8th year of this podcast. That's amazing. And as I knew when I started this in January of 2014, I knew I would get here because education technology is my passion in education. I love learning about it. I love using it. And I guess more importantly than all of that, I love helping you and bringing you the conversations and the recommendations. So I'm very excited to, be doing this podcast. And the Smackdown is your opportunity to get involved with the show here at the end of the year. All you need to do is go to chrisnesi.com/voicemail or chrisnesi.com/feedback and share with me and the rest of the House of EdTech community your favorite EdTech tip, recommendation, EdTech hack, website, something you loved in education technology here in the year 2021. That's what the point of this episode is. This is going to be episode 192. The episode will release on Sunday, December 19th, 2021, and you need to get your submission to me by Friday, December 10th, 2021. Now, I know in the last couple of episodes, I think I gave out some different dates, but we are going to go with Friday, December 10th as your last opportunity because I anticipate getting a lot of Smackdown entries. I have started to get Smackdown entries, so get your submission to me by Friday, December 10th. And again, I welcome your thoughts by going to chrisnesi.com/feedback or chrisnesi.com/voicemail. Now, let's get into this episode, and let's start with this episode's EdTech recommendation. This episode, I want to recommend to you GoBoard. GoBoard is a free online tool that combines video chatting and an interactive canvas. Students or teachers, basically the user, can simply create a GoBoard on the site. You don't need to sign up. You can just click start using it. You can share the link with a friend, a colleague, and you can just simply start to learn, communicate, collaborate, and create. And if you use it, you'll probably also critically think. So I think GoBoard is going to let you use and utilize the 4 C's. GoBoard was designed to help students collaborate one-on-one, but certainly if you are running anything virtual right now or hybrid, you could certainly use this to tutor a student, give extra help remotely, collaborate with colleagues. This looks like a really fun, fantastic tool. And you can do it all in the browser. There's nothing to download. So all you have to do is go to GoBoard.com. That's GoBoard.com. And as I look here in one that I'm kind of playing with as I'm recording this, you have what looks like a gridded blank canvas where you have a pen tool. There's a variety of colors and pen thicknesses. There are tools that you can embed. You can import and export images to your GoBoard. You can bring in a basic calculator. You can do a graphing calculator. You can add a background grid. You can have a text chat. You can, you can click on math tools and you can bring in some Wolfram Alpha applications, a number line, equation editor. For chemistry, you can do a bond drawing tool. There's a physics tab where, again, you can bring in shapes. You can do equation editing. And what do they have here for business? You can insert a table. So it is pretty cool. I'm looking at a little video of myself. I can share my screen into this. I have my microphone. It doesn't look like you have the ability to record anything, so it is live. It's one and done, but certainly check out GoBoard and go to GoBoard.com. If you check it out, let me know what you think. Hit me up on Twitter at Mr. Nessie, or you can leave a show note comment by going to chrisnessie.com/190. And GoBoard is today's House of EdTech recommendation. Joining me now on the podcast is Katrina Saleh. She is the EdTech Guru. Lena is a former classroom teacher with over 10 years of classroom experience. She has always been extremely passionate about technology and the role that it can play in the classroom. Lena believes that providing students with critical skills for our future is both vital and important to provide a more equitable opportunity for all learners. She has worked alongside many educators, administrators, thought leaders, and EdTech companies to help them prepare for this next era of modern education, and she joins us now. Welcome to the House of EdTech, Katrina Saleh.
Yes, thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
I am more than excited to have you here because I have from afar been following your journey since I discovered your YouTube channel, which we are going to certainly talk about because you're doing some fun things over there that are informative and certainly valuable, which is, we need that in the world because let's be honest, the world is pretty crazy right now on so many fronts. So we're going to try and stay away from the crazy, but, try and bring value.
Okay,
but how
great.
you doing?
Good. Doing great. Yeah, I've been following you for quite some time, so it's nice to finally sync up, and I'm excited to do this with you today.
I hope I don't disappoint you.
I don't think you could disappoint me.
Well, I do want to let the listener in on the fact that, if you've never seen her videos, it's like I'm like watching her do a video because that's like this conversation because we can see each other because I use Squadcast to record these conversations and she's got her headphones, she's got her pop filter, her microphone. So it's a ton of fun. We're just missing out on the fun graphics. And I got to say, you do a lot of fun visuals in your videos. You have great thumbnails, which from what I hear is important on YouTube.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I try to jazz it up where I can.
You definitely jazz it up. So don't stop. Keep creating.
Okay,
That's
right.
My advice to the guru.
I appreciate that very, very much. A lot of time goes into creating those thumbnails,
Yeah, they don't make themselves from what I hear, which is why I don't do a lot.
I wish they did, Yeah,
I don't do a lot of formal stuff on YouTube. Every time I think I should make videos, that's where it's at. And I'm like, it is so much easier to edit audio. Mm-hmm. And, again, face for radio, so it's just easier this way. But let's dive in. So you are the EdTech Guru. You have been in education for over a decade, right? Mm-hmm. So, and your eyes light up.
Yeah, way more than a decade now.
Way more now. Talk to me a little bit about how you got into education and a little bit about how that spark for technology blew up inside of you.
Yeah. Okay. So I always knew from like a really young age. My mom says my kindergarten teacher, she said the first day I came home from kindergarten, that's all I ever wanted to be was a teacher. So even in high school, I'd, volunteer in the classroom and do all of that kind of stuff. But after I graduated from college, and my first year of teaching is when I walked into the classroom and just knew that that wasn't how I wanted to learn or how I wanted my students to learn. The desks were like sitting in rows. You still had the old school projector with the vis-a-vis markers. It looked like
the overhead projector?
Yeah, the overhead projector. Which they provided, a lot of dried up markers for me. That was really nice of them.
And crusty clear plastic sheets.
Yeah. Those things they're like a worst nightmare, aren't they? So when I walked into that classroom, it just sparked something in me, knowing that, when I was a kid, I liked to tinker and do different things like that. And then I had, spent time in just observing the different trends that are happening, around the world. And I started to see that could also trickle down to the classroom.
If you could help paint a picture, because again, I teach history. What time period are we talking here?
About 10 years ago. Well, actually longer than that now. So maybe about 13 years ago when I first started teaching. Yeah. Seems like don't take me back. Okay. Let's not go decades back,
Let's put it this way. As I didn't get into education as soon as I wanted to.
Yeah.
Right. So I graduated with my bachelor's in history in 2004.
My bachelor's is in history as well.
Oh, we should start a whole other show. So, all right. Good to know. Duly noted. So, but I don't think you graduated college in 2004.
Mm-mm.
No. But when I graduated, I'm not saying I had this super fun undergraduate experience, but I certainly had distractions. I did not do what I needed to do, and I did not come out of college with my teaching credentials. I had to go into the real world and get a real job that made me really miserable. But then I went back, did a post-bac program here in New Jersey, got certified. I did my student teaching in the fall of 2007. It's 2021 as we get to the end of the year. And I realize if I didn't screw things up in my college years, I'd be approaching 20 years in education. And I'm not near 20 years. I'm 10 years in my current position. It's just, time is a funny thing.
Isn't it? Yeah, it is. Yeah, I started teaching at 22 in 2009. So we're not too far off when we first started teaching. So
the problem is, and I'm going to go out on a limb here, you're not 40 years old.
I'm getting there, so
I don't even think you're close. So
I am going to be 35 soon. So yeah,
35 is not 40.
It's close. It's getting there.
I don't teach math. That's not the same thing.
If we round up though, 35 rounds to 40, right?
What woman rounds her age up?
I don't want to round it up. I'm just saying it's much closer. No, I don't even want to mention that number either,
Fair enough. I'm surprised you did. Good for you. All right, getting back to serious education technology conversation. In your classroom, when you talk about the things you were integrating, what would a lesson look like? What were some of the tools that you were really using to engage your students, engage yourself in teaching? What did it look like in your classroom when you were at that stage?
Yeah, so I ended up working at a STEM school. And so we did, problem-based learning, kind of had a little bit more opportunity, I guess, with technology. So a lot of the things that my students were doing is we were doing more like of a flipped classroom model, even in those early days. So, we were using, we do robots and different things, kind of like that. And we were using like Socrative and just whatever EdTech tools were there. Most of the EdTech tools change so rapidly that,
they still do.
Yeah. There was this one, I can't remember what it was called. I think it was like 10 seconds or something, where you made like video clips in 10 seconds. And so the whole year we had spent like doing all the videos, and then what do you get? An email saying that they are no longer going to be in service. And I'm like, man, so I lost all that content for like the whole year. Yeah, that's worse. But hey, the kids learned how to make, little mini videos before TikTok became a thing. So
right. Or Flipgrid.
Yeah. So they were creating little, informational like tutorials, like even on how to solve math problems in second grade. So just try to integrate as much as I could. And kind of expose them to as many things. Because I think, as you know, the more exposure you have, the more comfortable students become.
Oh, yeah. I've talked on the show numerous times about being, device agnostic and don't be married to any one tool. If we think about, Jake Miller's message with educational duct tape,
yep.
Have a lot of things in your toolbox and everything has a time and a place. So
yep.
Shout out to Jake.
Yeah, no, he's definitely right on with that. Yeah. So I was always experimenting and, trying as many tools, I think, as possible, and also going to a bunch of like trainings, anywhere that there would be like a training, like at a college or some kind of research base, I would jump in so I could try to learn something new. Because I think that the minute you stop trying, the minute that, I don't know.
It's time to retire.
Yeah.
Or get a new job.
Yeah.
New career.
Exactly. Things dry up, quick. So.
Yeah. Yeah, they do.
Mm-hmm.
Real quick, if you could also help to paint the picture of, who you are as an educator. So in this experience, what grade were you working with, or was it multiple grades?
So it was first I taught 4th grade, and then I taught 2nd grade. And then after that, I transitioned to being a K-8, basically technology coach. So we did digital media, wrote grants to have a fab lab. So we did, then I started working with more teachers and, meeting with the teachers to see how we could incorporate more technology into just what they were doing every single day and trying to help support them too.
Let's explore that. Let's explore the space. I don't know if you're into acting or anything or improv. Let's explore. So yes, and me here. Okay. So as a technology coach, what is your philosophy on effective EdTech coaching?
I think the biggest tip and advice I would have is to, 1, have patience, 2, get your hands dirty, and 3, start low and slow. So starting with simple tools, whether you're working it into your regular PD, weekly PDs that no one really wants to, that's never anyone's most favorite time. But if you can make that more impactful and incorporate tools that teachers is easy enough that they can walk away with, then that's going to be the best starting point.
I would even add to that, teachers want to be able to use things. Mm-hmm. On this show, I even talk about, hear it today, use it tomorrow. So I try to bring that. But also, teachers need to realize the value in whatever that professional learning is, whatever that tool is. If it's just, your run-of-the-mill PD, you almost have to remember all of the things that you hated or don't like when you get professional development. Now you're in charge. You can shape that. You can impact that, right? It's similar to when people become teachers. You try to emulate the best teachers you had experience with, and you try to not do the things you didn't like or experience. Same applies as a coach, I would imagine.
Exactly. So you definitely have to, especially when you're doing the professional development trainings. I think a lot of times people go in and try to make it too fancy. If you do that, then all you're doing is just burning the candle at both ends. So you have to make sure that it's intentional. I think when you do professional development, what a lot of people forget is that it's not intentional. It needs to be intentional professional development that provides value. And you have to think about that when you do the tools. If you're going to give a bunch of hoopty-da, just fun, la-di-da-di toys and EdTech things that aren't really going to transform the classroom, I think you have to keep in mind that that's how they're going to use it too.
I think you also, and tell me if you disagree, you can't as a coach have an agenda, right? You have to, listen to people, ask questions, find out what they need or survey them. And I think some coaches, and this could be in any industry, you have your agenda, you have your script, your plan, and it might work for some, but if people feel it, they're not talking to me, I'm going to tune out. I'm going to roll my eyes. I'm going to grade papers. And now you're missing out on opportunities where you can influence and make change and really help people, which is, I think, the reason why people want to become coaches.
Mm-hmm. Is you want to help people just the same way that somebody probably helped you down the line. I think you made a really good point about the surveys and taking interest surveys. I think even over the pandemic, obviously Clubhouse had this really big boom and still continues, I think, to show its presence a lot in teachers being able to connect with each other. But a lot of the feedback was about professional development, professional learning, was that nobody was giving them surveys to see if they had interest in it. So you were just delivering something that you think that they want rather than listening to what they need.
And that's still my experience, even as a high school social studies teacher. So often the PD is, I sit there like I'm open-minded. I have a growth mindset. I'm willing to listen. But then after I have listened, I often find myself saying, what was the point? Like, I listened. It had nothing to do with what I do, right? It's just, that's the frustrating piece, which is why, you go out, you start a podcast, you go on Twitter, you connect with people, and you get what you need. The problem is, and we might be making a left when we should be making a right, I don't know, not enough educators are willing to be aggressive and go out and get what they need. I've worked with teachers who, here in New Jersey, you have to have, I think, 20 hours of PD per year. Now, granted, if you don't, I don't know what happens to you if you don't reach that mark over, it used to be you need 100 hours every 5 years, whatever. I don't know what the penalty was if you didn't. But you would have people who would say, well, why would I go to ed camp, or why would I do this other stuff or go to a conference when the district will provide me with the hours I need? And then you're, I don't want to misspeak, you're beholden to what the PD that's offered is.
Yeah. And you're not transforming your thinking and you're not transforming your learning, because when you sit in those, exactly what you're saying, when you sit in those district level PD sessions, most of the time when you're sitting there, I remember sitting there thinking, okay, that's cool, but how is that going to help me and meet my students' needs and the goals that they need to have for success? And I do agree with you that the unfortunate part is that the professional development isn't really transforming, I think, at the district level so much as it should. It kind of pains me and makes me a lot of times really, really sad, because all the teachers are so busy. You do so many things every single day, day in and day out. So that's why we put out content and we create content. But the district isn't transforming enough to meet those teachers' needs, because they are tired and exhausted. And it's just extra time that you have to invest. And a lot of people don't want to invest that extra time.
But you hit on the fact that, teachers like you and I, we make content and, we're putting our voices out there. So why don't we shift gears a little bit and talk about the content you're creating through your YouTube channel? And let's pause right here for a word from this episode's sponsor, EverFi. If you need standards-aligned digital resources to teach real-world topics like financial literacy, career skills of the future, leadership, digital citizenship, or social-emotional learning, then EverFi has a resource for you. This past school year, EverFi had over 72,000 active courses with 4.8 million student enrollments. These digital resources are free to K-12 schools, so every teacher has access to them, no matter your classroom setting. Lessons are self-paced for students, and you can monitor students' auto-graded and pre- and post-assessment scores right from the teacher dashboard. From sports to banking, you will find a topic with a real-world angle that your students will love. And with the holiday spending season upon us, now is a great time to equip students with the skills needed to make savvy financial decisions. Ready to give your students a jumpstart on their future? Go to chrisnessy.com/everfi. And when you do, sign up to get a virtual swag bag full of free goodies and check out the show notes for the links. Once again, go to chrisnessy.com/everfi. That's EVERFI. And now, back to the show. And let's start first with, why did you decide YouTube? Because there's so many ways that you can get content and put your voice out there. Why YouTube for you?
For me, I think it was just that I thought it would be an easier medium to do. I don't feel like it was like as saturated in that way. Obviously that's far from the truth. But when I started doing it, I was like, oh yeah, it's not as saturated as like the podcast world. And I didn't really have, I don't think the confidence enough to like do like a full podcast episode. So I was like, oh, I'll just do mini episodes of YouTube. So, it was a bigger task than I thought it was at the beginning. But I think that a lot of people are just sitting there watching videos in YouTube constantly. So if I could provide a little bit of value, even if they're just listening, then I figured that might be another way to go.
Now, let me just say this to you who is listening. Her videos are not just for listening. Again, they are visually pleasing. It's not just her sitting there. Like, she puts graphics up on the screen. She's talking. Some are short, some are long, and, it's all good stuff. And why don't you talk a little bit about how you decide what to create content around? Because if someone goes to your channel, again, it's the EdTech Guru, and I will link to that in the show notes out at chrisnesi.com/190. So make sure you click on that and subscribe to her channel. You create what looks like themed content. It's not just one video here, one video there, and it's not unrelated. You seem to batch produce, and you've got these broader topics that take you a couple of videos. Why don't you talk about some of the content you've created and how you decide what you want to create it about?
Yeah, so you're right. I do sometimes do some series and batches of, different kinds of content, like helping EdTech companies and what they kind of need to thrive. I think a lot of the things that I'll put out are things people reach out to me on LinkedIn and ask me questions. And so I have so many of those questions that I feel like I'll just put it in a video. So that's usually how it ends up coming to fruition. But a lot of times it'll just be in my regular job working at CodeMonkey. I do professional development and do professional learning.
Wait, time out. Wait a minute. Let's stress the fact that you currently work at CodeMonkey, which sounds like a lot of fun. So we'll talk about that too, but go ahead.
Okay. And so I hear just a lot of things that a lot of the pain points that teachers are facing. So then I'll, listen to that or just sit on Clubhouse and kind of see some of the conversations that people are having and try to put that into intentional like thought leadership around certain subjects.
Now, some of the series that you have created, and while you were talking, I was listening, but I also pulled up your YouTube channel because that helps me. So your first video over a year ago, or maybe just about a year ago, is the journey to become the EdTech Guru. And the thumbnail has two big, bold words and some smaller words. Says, "I quit." Why don't you talk about that?
So when I first put out that video, it was obviously I didn't sleep for days. But when I first put it out, I was so nervous to share it. But I had been, I was living in Austin, Texas, and I was organizing some EdTech meetups. So we had meetups between partnerships with EdTech companies and different ideations, and then also teachers coming in and trying to kind of marry that bridge. But I felt like I was sharing the same story over and over and over again. And I also knew that I was going to be moving from Austin to Houston, and how quick your network disappears when you just are on the ground. And so I knew that I needed to kind of expand my reach, I guess, so a little bit, more. Like, we would have never met if I would have not ever put myself out there. So I think it just makes your network a bit wider. So I just shared my story about why I left the classroom, and I left the classroom because I had moved from Colorado to Austin, and you would think Austin, this very big innovation hub and startups capital, and where all these, all the Silicon Valley companies are now moving to Austin. You would think that
I've heard it described as Silicon Valley South.
Yeah, it is. It's basically the same thing. It's all the same exact companies. Crazy now cost of living. So it's just going to have the same sort of impact, I think. Both very cool cities, but you wouldn't see that necessarily in the surrounding schools. And so my principal, when I was we were like re-engineering, working through the design process of building catapults. And I didn't want to do it how they taught me in the canned lesson, but I wanted to incorporate technology, and they were, graphing and doing all kinds of things. And she told me that I was just too innovative. And so I decided, I know, how could I do such a thing? She
how
said,
dare you?
Yeah, she said I was asking, what I was asking from students was just too much.
Wait, so this administrator wanted you to lower the bar?
Yeah.
Jeez Louise.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry to Louise, by the way.
Yeah. And when you have kids that are engaged and they were engaged, nobody was messing around. Everyone was excited and learning. But I feel like it was at that time that I knew that I probably needed to expand my reach in a little bit different ways.
Yeah.
It was a hard decision to make, lots of tears.
I can't imagine it's an easy one.
Yeah, it's very difficult. And so when I talk with teachers, a lot of times who are in those same, I never want teachers to leave the classroom. I always want to support them as much as possible. But I also think when you do decide to make a transition, companies also need you just as much as you need them. So I also try to bridge the gap and try to mentor as much as I can teachers, because teachers need it in the same way that students need it.
What? Teachers are human beings who also have feelings and need help?
Who would have ever thought, right?
I might title this episode Truth Bombs with the EdTech Guru. Obvious truth. I mean, yeah. We're on the same page.
We are on the same page. Very
and I'm
much.
sure that my listener is too.
Yeah. So then I just started creating the content and kind of expanding my reach. And it's amazing when you put yourself out there, you have very small, you feel like you're making a difference, in your district, and people know you in your district and you're doing trainings and things like that. But you step outside the district and you're just a small fish in a big pond. So it's important, I think, that if you feel like you have, ideas, you want to connect with others, to start putting yourself out there and start connecting. You can have such an amazing wealth of just a greater network if you start to just think of yourself outside of your district and your classroom.
Now, know this. Every bubble has its problems. Mm-hmm. But at least you could commiserate and gather with other like-minded people who will challenge you, who will agree with you, right? I mean, I would like to think that most of the people who listen to this podcast are in some way, shape, or form a connected educator. But this is going to be the part of the show that you want to send and share with that person who maybe is hesitant or just isn't, or has said no, or is just adamant about, I got no use for Twitter or Instagram or TikTok. And can these places be cesspools of negativity? Absolutely. But for the most part, we educators are a positive people. We are a kind people. You'll find your tribe. You'll find the people who will, again, challenge you, push you, agree with you. You can ask questions. I know recently I put out a tweet where I was I put out some GIF, and it was the guy yelling to nobody. And I was this is how it sometimes honestly feels when you put something out on Twitter, right? Or Instagram, oh my gosh, nobody likes me. Nobody saw my question. There's a lot of stuff out there. You got to be patient. You got to connect with people. I don't know. Connect with me. Connect with Leena. Just start being a part of the conversation. All right, your turn. You get up on the soapbox. Go ahead.
Yeah, I am 100% agree with you. I think when as teachers it's so easy to be siloed in your district, and you're going to find a lot of people that, I don't know how to put this, but there's a lot of misery that can, if you sit in a teacher's lounge sometimes for 5 minutes, you'll hear a lot of negative conversations, and it's easy to not feel supported, I think. And I think when you start connecting with others on Twitter, or maybe you put yourself out there on Instagram, or wherever you feel most comfortable, you're going to start to see that there are other like-minded individuals like you that share your same thoughts, share your same processes. And if you're wanting to do, let's say, you want to do a really engaging history lesson, there are other history educators that want to do the same thing. So now, Chris and I could work on a project together for our students, and our students could work with each other. And now we're giving them this greater window of opportunity that they would have never had before. And I think that's the most powerful piece that I found with just Twitter itself, just being able to connect with these educators that put themselves out there and ask for resources, and everyone's sharing resources. And it's just obviously there's going to be those people that are always there, but that's the world that we live in. That's just how it goes. But the amazing things that you can find are it just amazes me every day when I'm on there. I'm like, oh my gosh, I don't even know where to start, or how to navigate this, because there are such amazing resources and people.
Well, funny you should mention not knowing where to start. Now I'm going to shine the spotlight on you, because you are the guru. So I'm going to milk this for all it's worth. So Leena, for the person who might catch this clip when it gets shared, and remember, you who's listening, it's your responsibility to share this, so make sure you do it. What's your advice for the person who wants to get started? How do we enter the building on the ground floor to get connected, in your opinion?
I think just get started. I think that's like the biggest key. But I think at the very beginning, if you're just getting started, go to wherever you feel the most comfortable, whichever social media you feel the most comfortable on. I'll say that Twitter and Facebook groups are going to be the most
toxic.
No. That's funny. I mean, that is there, but the most engaging, I would say, like there's the most like conversation happening back and forth. Instagram's a bit trickier, I think, to kind of have those conversations because you're not really, it's hard to rebuttal off of each other and they get
so many
kind
pictures
of lost in the comment. Yeah. It just gets lost in the comments.
Well, people don't go to Instagram to have conversations.
Exactly.
I don't think
right? So.
Twitter is a conversation place. Facebook is for conversations. I would say if you're looking for that audio experience, Clubhouse would be the way to go. And I've done an episode on that. So, yeah.
And I did an episode bouncing off your episode also of Clubhouse as well.
Oh, it's like we were playing catch.
Yeah.
Where's that one?
But I would say as an educator, if you're really looking to get started and really wanting to start connecting with other people, join a Facebook group that's like of like interest. And I would say just kind of sit back at first and just kind of listen, or in this case, read what comments are happening. And I think you'll start to feel more comfortable once you start to see that people are, for the most part, welcoming and wanting to engage and have conversations. And then you'll start, I think once you see that and you see how welcoming most people are, then you'll really, you'll start commenting here and there on something, or maybe you might throw in a resource that you've used before. And then before you know it, you're interacting. Now you're posting. Now you're engaging and you're liking other people's. And then now you're telling people how to do it.
You know, it just popped in my head. You just described the modern adult version of what it's like to show up in kindergarten for the first time. How do you tell little Susie and little Billy to make a friend? Well, go up to people, say hello, introduce yourself, ask them to talk about themselves, be nice and kind to others. Getting on social media is like going to kindergarten. It's a bunch of children.
Yeah, but it is a necessary evil, right? It's just the way that with the way that education is changing. And we saw a bit of a window when COVID happened, and I think the window kind of closed a bit, but I think it's cracked open. So it's going to start, we'll start to see some more transitional ways of teaching. But I think what we saw is that educators could connect with each other and feel each other's pain points.
But, and you're right about the whole window thing. I've had a number of conversations, whether it was, through here or, with Podcast PD, with people through COVID and, the missed opportunities. And I think there are certainly a lot of missed opportunities, and I've not shied away from that opinion at all. We can't stop. You have to keep going. You have to keep pushing. And if your mindset is, I do the things that I believe are right for kids, then you can't really go wrong. Keep pushing, keep learning, keep advocating for yourself, for your kids. Change will happen. Honestly, you might not still be teaching to see the change, but know that for your career, education is better because you're in it than not.
If you just keep trying, exactly what you're saying, it's important. But another factor that I think is a very big missed opportunity for teachers is that COVID opened this window to industry. And that means, they are now willing to collaborate, I think, with you as well. So if you're not sure what things you think your students need, they will welcome you with open arms to show you what is happening in the space. And I think that can be, or hop on a webinar or, do something kind of sitting back. But I think if you have the opportunity to see what's going on outside of education, it will transform what's happening inside of education.
I can't agree with that more, because we want our students to be well-rounded, lifelong learners. So we have to, as teachers, kind of foster those opportunities for them. I know, right? It's crazy. So yeah, if we're living that and that's our truth and we're learning and growing and connecting, Let's do that for our kids. Show them the way, right? We can all talk a good game, but if they see how easy it can be or how you overcome the struggles of trying to reach out and make connections, they'll learn from that. And again, the upside is tremendous when you can bring in and connect with all sorts of groups and organizations, which I think is what you were alluding to. You know, that's the world we live in. Anybody can come into our classroom now. Mystery Skype, mystery Google Hangout, the whole thing. But more people are even more capable of coming into your classrooms virtually. Or, I mean, in person will be great. We're going to get back to that. I hope I didn't misspeak. I think that's...
No, that's exactly what I was thinking. And I think virtual gives you this opportunity to see things that you probably wouldn't have ever seen. But I also would say even just start locally. So even if you're listening and you're in a small rural town and you're thinking to yourself, there's not anything near me. The amount of technology that goes into just farming practices is an amazing, undervalued quality that I think we sometimes forget about.
To me, what I hear when you say that is, overall, there's a lot of untapped resources that educators aren't tapping into, which that's what makes them untapped. Mm-hmm. So, exactly. Again, you got to make those opportunities. You got to be willing to go out there and put yourself out there, whether it's getting connected, sending that email, filling out that form on a company's website to make contact. And you never know. It's always a no until it's a yes, and it's definitely a no if you never try.
Exactly.
How many more things can I say?
Exactly. And the more you put yourself out there, you're going to get a lot of crickets when you do stuff, and that's okay. But the more that you get crickets, the more you're going to want to keep trying to get that yes. And when you do, then that's going to be it's kind of like dating, right? Or the modern day dating, you're swiping a bunch of rights, hoping you're going to match with someone, and you might get a lot of that you might not match with the person that you really wanted to. I have no idea
what you're talking about, because I had to do it the old fashioned way where you had to, hey, how you doing?
Okay, but did you get a lot of rejections too? Sometimes you go up to someone.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's the same. So you might have those rejections, right? So, but I think it's kind of like what we want. Our kids face rejections daily too. So once you finally do meet your match, then you're going to have a lifelong partnership with that other company or another person. And it'll fill your cup, basically.
I like that. Fill your cup. Fill your kids' cups. Teach them how to fill their own cup.
Yes.
How about that? There you go. Old school.
Exactly.
Teach them to fish. Don't just feed them.
Exactly. Yes.
Nice. Well, this has been a ton of fun, and certainly I need to have you back on in the future. And I want to apologize that it's taken this long to get you on here in the first place, because you've been putting your voice out there, and I've been watching and lurking and commenting, and you've been so gracious to genuinely talk about House of EdTech and Podcast PD on your channel. And I'm glad that I could get you on here and give you the stage. And I think we had a really great conversation. I really enjoyed talking with you tonight.
I appreciate
that. Or
that.
Today or tomorrow.
Yeah.
I don't want to let them know when it's happening.
But I also appreciate, and I'm sure all the listeners do as well, how much time and effort you put into putting out great content as well.
As we start to wrap up, or as we wrap it up, please let my audience know how they can connect with you. Again, I'm going to link to YouTube and everything you say in the show notes, but please say it out loud. Where's the best place to connect with you and all those wonderful things?
You can just connect with me on any of my social medias. I have the same handle on everything. It's Leena Marie Saleh, LeenaMarieSaleh on any social media. So please do reach out to me. Don't feel scared.
So yeah, that's it. Thank you for being here on the House of EdTech, and let's get to the rest of the episode. Thank you for being here.
Thank you so much.
I hope you enjoyed my conversation with Leena. She's a fantastic person. I'm glad to know her, and I hope you rush right out when you're done with the episode and you connect with her and subscribe to her YouTube channel, because she's putting out some great content that I think you'll get value from, which is why I wanted to have her here as a guest on the podcast. Now, Let's meet this episode's House of EdTech VIP, and I want to introduce you to Miss Katrina Harris. She is at Lovin' Looseleaf on Twitter, and that's LovenLooseleaf. Lovin' Looseleaf. She is a 4th grade teacher. She is a hashtag pencil pusher. She currently teaches at Outley Elementary School in the Houston area. She is in her 7th year of teaching. She is certified to teach in 5 different states, and she is an alumna of an HBCU. She is a SigmaGammaRho Educator, and you should connect with Katrina Harris. I recently connected with her because she is connected to the podcast, so shout out to you, Katrina. Thank you for listening to the House of EdTech, and you are a House of EdTech VIP. Thank you for listening to this episode of the House of EdTech. If you're not subscribed or following the podcast, I hope that this episode has inspired you to continue and make this podcast a part of your anytime, anywhere professional development. Thank you once again to Leena Saleh for joining me on this episode, and be sure to connect with her at Leena Marie Saleh on most social media spaces. Also, thank you again to this episode's sponsor, EverFi. From financial literacy to many other topics important for today's students to learn, their free lessons will help schools be successful wherever they are in face-to-face or online environments. Visit chrisnesi.com/everfi to learn more, and that's EverFi, EverFi, EverFi. Also, keep the conversation going and share your thoughts on this episode. Leena and I did drop those EdTech truth bombs. What are your EdTech truth bombs? Share it on the website. Go to chrisnesi.com/190. Leave a comment right there on the show notes. Or you can send an email to chrisnesi.com/feedback, or send a voicemail. This is an audio podcast, so get your voice on here. chrisnesi.com/voicemail. And if you enjoy the House of EdTech podcast, tell somebody about the show. Word of mouth is the best way to share a podcast you love. You could also become an awesome supporter. I am very, very thankful for the ongoing financial support of the following awesome people. Thank you to Anthony Arnaud, Dan Gallagher, Carlos Garza, Peggy George, Jeff Herb, Mike Messner, Matt Miller, JP Prezavento, Patty Reefus, Lori Simpson, and, of course, Kyle Wilcox. If you're getting value from this podcast, you too can become an awesome supporter by visiting chrisnesi.com/awesome. Once again, the next episode of the podcast is going to be episode 191. I can officially say the march to 200 is on. Episode 191 is going to come your way on December 5th, so I look forward to having you tune in for that. And of course, don't forget about the EdTech Smackdown that's also coming your way. Until next time, thanks for learning with me, and remember, using technology isn't difficult. Just give it a try.